3 years ago, I made a video called Why I Don't Like Ramadan. And again, the holy month of fasting, feasting is here, Ramadan. This year, I put together a much more comprehensive video on just how awful this month is. Tell me how you really feel, right? Well, I'm going to tell you all right. I'm not going to be mincing any words. I never liked Ramadan. I found it tiresome. It's supposed to be about spirituality, discipline, insert buzzword, empathy for the poor, yada yada. But it's just a physically grueling ordeal that repeats itself over and over for an entire month. By the end of your month, your lips are chapped, you're dehydrated, you've lost a bunch of muscle, and if you're lucky, fat, but usually not. And you feel exhausted after it all. You just don't feel any more spiritual, just tired and secretly glad it's over. It's not considered in good taste to complain openly about this as a Muslim because it's Allah's favorite month or something. But we're going to rip it wide open here. The reality of Ramadan exposed. Let's get into it.
Excuse me?
Sorry?
Yeah, I can smell that. Do you mind eating that somewhere else? I'm fasting.
That's not my concern.
Yeah, but I'm fasting though.
So why are you out?
What do you mean why am I out?
If you're fasting indoors,
Yeah, but
I'm eating my lunch and you come and disturb me.
yeah,
What for?
yeah, but I can smell it.
So what? It's food. Of course you're going to smell it.
Yeah, but can you not just wait until you get off the
Please,
bus?
don't tell me what to do. You're fasting, stay indoors and don't come and bother nobody on the bus.
No, but I'm just saying.
I'm eating my lunch.
Yeah, but
What's your problem?
Because you're right next to me. I can
Well,
smell
go
it.
downstairs.
You think you should have manners and not eat inside the
Go
bus? though?
downstairs and leave me alone. It's my lunch.
Like I said, I'm fasting and I can smell it.
That's your business. Stay indoors.
What do you mean stay indoors? I need to
When
go out
I
and see this
fast,
stuff.
I don't go out. Stay
Okay.
indoors, read your Bible, and
Okay.
keep quiet.
Well, first of all, I don't read the Bible. Second of all, just because you stay inside when you're fasting doesn't mean I need to do it as well.
We shouldn't be coming out here making trouble.
Entitled people demanding accommodations, inconsistent fast timings, Muslims struggling in non-Muslim countries without accommodations, non-Muslims were forced to eat in Muslim countries, increase in food waste, laziness, full mosques followed by empty mosques, fighting over the moon. What does Ramadan really bring to humanity? One of the patterns you're going to see in this video is inconsistent and incoherent rules. But before we get into the negatives, which there are so many of, I'm going to start with looking at this holistically. Ramadan brings families together for iftar, breaking the fast, and in some cases it can be nice to wake up together for suhoor, the pre-dawn meal. That being said, even here, this convert Muslim girl mentioned that waking up alone for suhoor is so lonely. So Olivia says, suhoor as a reward is actually so lonely, man. And in the response, you have the brothers saying, may Allah grant you a good partner, inshallah. And another brother saying, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easier for you, inshallah. So here you have this revert Muslimah, this young Muslim, and she's alone and sad that she has to wake up for suhoor. Suhoor is the pre-dawn meal, all by herself. I mean, that could be pretty hard, right? Just having to wake up all by yourself, make yourself breakfast in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping. Doesn't sound fun, does it? So yes, there are some benefits, mainly around bringing people together and feeling spiritually high when you go through each fast, or go for the long-ass prayers at night. But at what cost? If I were to design a better Ramadan, I'd make it 7 days long, optional fasting, water allowed, and based on reasonable hours that don't fluctuate. People can still get together for dinner and pray together, but without all the awfulness. Now let's talk about fasting hours. Many Muslims don't want to acknowledge the obvious, blatant, bald-faced truth facing them right in the eyes. Ramadan was conveniently designed for the 7th century. The idea of a pre-dawn and sunset meal worked well in Arabia, but what about places with extreme daylight hours? Combined with the fact that the lunar calendar makes Ramadan shift through seasons, sometimes easy, sometimes unbearably hard. I personally have gone through fasts in summer in Canada that were brutal. You have to finish eating by like 4 or 5 a.m. and no water or food until 9 p.m. or sometimes even close to 10. The summer fasts are the worst. You really get exhausted. There's no way to recover from this constant daily drain. You know what would have made it bearable? Not forcing the hours around the Maghrib prayer, meaning the sunset prayer. I've done intermittent fasting for 16 hours, but it wasn't like this. The most common schedule for intermittent fasting is you skip breakfast, eat from noon to 8 p.m., fast the rest of the night. It's 16 hours, but it's actually doable, and you can have water, black tea and coffee, sugar-free drinks. Your body is in ketosis since you don't get any calories in, but you don't get dehydrated and you don't have to be a miserable fuck by wrecking your sleep to wake up and eat at 4 a.m. What's it like to eat at 4 a.m. anyway? Your stomach feels like sludge. And then you wake up in the morning after that, after going back to bed. So you wake up, you eat, you go back to bed, and you wake up in the morning and it all comes out at once. Since your body doesn't want this calorie explosion like that. And then the winter fasts in these same countries are hilariously short. Do you get less reward in those months and more in the long months? In reality, having months of short fasts does not make the long ones any better. The long ones are rough and draining, and the short ones are a joke. More tough questions for Allah, who designed this system that makes no sense and is completely unfair. Muslims claim this is about discipline, but how does that make sense when you can take naps or your fasting is easier than the rest of the world based on the fact you live in a country with shorter daylight hours? Never mind the fact that if you live in the extreme north, there is no sunset. What then? Of course, another arbitrary rule has to be made up, such as follow Saudi in this case. The fasting feasting cycle. One of the most obvious and most ridiculous parts of Ramadan is the fasting feasting cycle. It's actually quite surprising that most Muslims don't lose weight in Ramadan, but maintain their weight or even gain weight. How is this humanly possible? To gain weight means you have to be in a calorie surplus. Considering that in Ramadan you only eat for a small pocket of time, how can you possibly gain weight? The reason is obvious to all. It's the food. The delicious, oily, indulgent meals that are eaten every day. There's also a massive amount of food wastage. Combined with lower energy output such as taking naps, sleeping in, and spending hours sitting around, this doesn't lead to a healthy outcome. Your body sits unused. The Muslim gym bros tend to lose their gains too in this month. Because when you fast, the first thing that goes is your muscle. Fat is the last to go. Being an athlete in Ramadan is being in handicap mode. No water, hardly any calories, less sleep because of all the prayers and crap. That being said, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. And fasting in general with water is a good thing. But from a health perspective, Ramadan is no good. It puts your body in an awful situation of constant dehydration followed by these gluttonous meals. If you sleep in and miss suhoor or iftar, either the breakfast or dinner, you have to do a double continuous fast. This happened to me and many others I know. You somehow sleep through because you're so tired and you end up doing an extra long double fast. The moon sighting controversy. Every single year there's a problem with Ramadan, which is that nobody knows when it started. There are so many different opinions on what the right answer is. Is it when the moon is sighted in your locality, or in Saudi, the birthplace of Islam, or anywhere in the world? Even better, based on math for when the moon can theoretically be sighted? Who knows? It's all opinion. And sometimes you'll have a single family where one's fasting and the other one's celebrating Eid. It happened in our family several times. This doesn't usually happen in Muslim countries though, because the government announces what day Ramadan starts and everyone just follows that. However, if you're like the majority of us living outside of a Muslim country, be prepared for a mess. I remember one day, the mosque in Waterloo, Ontario announced that it was Eid, meaning the month of fasting was done the next day, and then changed their mind after people went to bed. The Hilal committee, for some reason, there was some confusion about whether the moon was sighted or not sighted. They decided it was not sighted after they decided it was sighted. And then on top of it, you don't even know if you're supposed to go to work, take the day off, what to do, because it might be Eid, it might not be Eid. It's very confusing. People felt annoyed that the Hilal committee's local sighting included Guyana. That's right, in North America, because most mosques in Toronto are founded by those in the Guyanese community who wanted to break fast with their families back home, they decided to include Guyana in the local sighting. Fasting in Muslim countries gives you an advantage that you don't get in non-Muslim countries. Many will sleep all day and stay up all night. You get shorter days at work, time off, and the hours in the Middle East are pretty easy. Talk about a productivity drop. Not like the Muslims unlucky enough to live in the northern latitudes. Right now in Dubai, the fast is 5 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is similar to Toronto. The fasting hours don't massively fluctuate, they're stable. Yet again, another example of why the system sucks. If you're one of the millions not lucky enough to live in a Muslim country, you have to live Ramadan in hard mode, especially in summer. Yet in both cases, human productivity goes down for not just one day, but an entire month. All for the sake of dogma. Things slow down, come to a halt, things don't get done. If you're not Muslim, technically you don't need to fast, right? But in Muslim countries, many face social pressure to not eat in front of others. Like that video I showed you, which was in the UK, I think. People still feel like entitled. Muslims feel entitled. Restaurants and shops are closed or have to install curtains for non-Muslims. If you want to eat in a workplace, you'd have to go and do it discreetly or be punished for offending the religion or even blasphemy. So much for freedom of religion, right? Next, we're going to show some damning statistics about how violence and crime increase in Ramadan. Before I get into this, just a reminder to subscribe if you're new here. If you want to see more and you'd like to support the channel, please also consider joining the Patreon or directly on YouTube below by clicking Join Now. Peace or fighting? Studies show that in Ramadan, there's an increase in domestic violence. Irritability from fasting is increased. When I was in Egypt for a few months, I saw people sometimes breaking out in fist fighting. There was a lot of yelling. In fact, in an article from the New Arab, it says, while more Muslims seek domestic violence support in Ramadan, many can't bear to act. More Muslims are seeking domestic violence support during Ramadan. But why are many of those who turn to the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition for help unwilling to take action during the holy month? Anna isn't surprised that UK-based Islamic domestic violence charity Noor in 2021 says it receives more requests for support during Ramadan. Daily News Egypt wrote, Ramadan saw a rise in violent domestic crimes, media says. According to Gamal al-Banna, the younger brother of Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Islamic Brotherhood, although Ramadan is a holy month where Muslims seek to be closer to God, fasting can put some people in a melancholy mood. Add to this the physiological state of fasting and the stressful conditions of Egyptian life, and consequently crimes take place in Ramadan, he told the Daily Star Egypt. Imagine hearing from the younger brother of the founder of Ikhwani Muslimun that domestic violence and fighting increases in Ramadan. Pretty nuts. What about women? Are they safe? In the Faith and Violence Against Women and Girls Coalition blog, they wrote, across the globe, Ramadan is a month of reflection, solidarity, and bonding within the families. There is no doubt that for many, it is a month of self-purification, dedication, and spirituality. However, like all religious commemorations and festivals, the holy month of Ramadan can bring extra burdens, extra responsibilities, and chores for both women and girls. This can lead to women being overloaded in many ways, especially when they are expected to wake up earlier to ensure food is ready for suhoor, time for eating before sunrise, to cook a wider variety of dishes, inviting family and friends for iftar, time of breaking the fast at sunset, and burdened with the responsibility of cleaning and tidying up after. In many families, the cultural expectations, rigorous gender roles, and stereotypes continue to perpetuate a vicious cycle, pushing many to a breakdown, burnout, or extreme exhaustion, especially when there's ongoing coercive control and abuse happening. In addition to this, we know that even during regular days, some women face a triple shift. This is where women not only take on paid work and unpaid work, i.e. housework, but also the emotional care and well-being work within the household. The triple burden and multiple roles expected of women in society can heighten tensions during festival seasons, which can be seen in the increase in domestic abuse and divorce cases for these periods. From my experience of working with Muslim domestic violence survivors, I remember cases where in one situation a young mother with a newborn baby was overwhelmed, especially during Ramadan. This survivor's husband would find Ramadan as an easy and relaxing escape to sleep until the afternoon, making himself absent, not helping with daily chores or being there for the baby simply because he was fasting. I also remember a good friend who some time ago mentioned Ramadan brings out the beast in him. When he's fasting, it's more aggressive. If you say anything, he can flare up. And one more final reference to lay this to rest and put the nail in the coffin. The International Journal of Forensic Sciences had research done on the crime trend in Kosovo during the month of Ramadan. This is an actual medical journal and high quality research. It was done with the lieutenant colonel of the Kosovo police. And again, just a reminder, 90-something% of the inhabitants are Muslim. All the raw data has been recorded, and the conclusion was, overall, the study suggests that there is a potential increase in crime during the month of Ramadan, particularly in relation to property crimes such as theft, causes and factors according to statistics. They attribute this increase in crime for the following reasons. Stress and spiritual tensions. The stress of fasting. Fasting during Ramadan can cause stress and anxiety in some individuals, especially those who are not accustomed to the practice. The impact of this stress can increase the likelihood of conflict and aggression, contributing to an increase in violent crimes such as assaults or family disputes. Some individuals may feel isolated during Ramadan, especially those who are unable to participate in religious or family activities. The sense of isolation can lead to feelings of frustration and anger, which can contribute to violent crime. Now we've looked at some data that shows some troubling social problems that get worse in Ramadan. But we're not done yet. Aggressive reactions to eating in Ramadan, where this Muslim guy in Yemen decided to do a social experiment where he pretends to eat and then his fellow Muslims get really aggressive with him. I've linked it in the comments if you want to check it out. Watch that video next. My wife, Mrs. Friendly Ex-Muslim, is going to read the following part.
Okay, so I had some of my own points that I wanted to add to this, and I'm going to go over 3. These are all things that I've experienced and witnessed, so I'd like to share that with you. The pressure to ignore that life still continues. If you are a Muslim, life doesn't stop because of Ramadan. Well, it may, if only you have to be concerned with fasting and going to the mosque, but that is not how life is for pretty much everyone. People who fast still have to do the daily grind of life, which can be really challenging when you throw in the whole waking up early to make suhoor for your entire family, followed by praying, and maybe going back to sleep if you're lucky. Your sleep is already going to be broken by forcing yourself to get out of bed just because Muhammad said so. That is just the beginning, though. If you are a woman, you're going to be stuck in the kitchen cooking every single night for the entire month. Everyone else will be able to ignore the smell of food and making it because they are not the ones cooking. It's a grueling and thankless job assigned to the woman. If you're in college and studying, fasting is going to impact your ability to function and use your brain. You're going to be tired, thirsty, and hungry. It's really hard to focus and do your best when you have broken sleep and no food or water. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, menstruation. Pregnancy and breastfeeding women are exempt from fasting, but many pregnant women will still fast and put their bodies through unnecessary hardship. The thing that is awful about taking advantage of this exemption is the fact that you're not totally off the hook here. When your pregnancy and breastfeeding ends, you are required to make up those fasts. Even if you have your period during Ramadan, this is not truly a break from fasting. Why should you have to make up a fast for something natural your body does that is beyond your control? So, the exemption does not mean that you totally get a break and never have to think about it again. You will often see women talking about making up fasts before Ramadan starts, or making them up throughout the year. Regardless, it's annoying to have to set aside days and weeks of your time to fast. Imagine if you even had one pregnancy. You will have to make up that entire month, as well as potentially 2 years of breastfeeding. That will easily be 90 days of fasting because you had one child. Some women have back-to-back pregnancies for years, which would tally up their missed fasts even higher. If women are supposed to be a cherished and valued part of the Muslim community, why do they have to make up fasts as mothers? Being a mother is exhausting, and you need all of the energy you can get. Why should you be burdened with making up fasts because you had a baby? You know what else I always found interesting about pregnant women being exempted from fasting? A lot of women don't even know they are pregnant when Ramadan starts because they're still early in their pregnancy and they won't test positive yet. Early pregnancy symptoms can be anything from headaches to feeling extremely exhausted. A woman who is unknowingly pregnant will have to suffer and fast. If there was a chance a woman could be pregnant at all, why didn't Allah add that clause to the pregnancy exemption? Depression and fasting. Depression is something that can be considered an invisible struggle. There are many people who have high-functioning depression, meaning they wake up every day and shower and eat, hold jobs, and take care of their families. In general, depression will take away your motivation to live life. People with depression experience sadness that is sometimes unexplainable. There are many ways that depression will manifest and present itself in a person. Islam has a very poor understanding of mental health. One of the exemptions of fasting Ramadan is being sick. Well, a person with depression is not necessarily physically sick per se. Another exemption is having a mental illness. Well, depression is a mental illness, but it does not render a person insane. When Islam says a mental illness makes someone exempt, they are talking about something that takes away your sanity and ability to make a decision. People suffering from depression can still make decisions. It's just that fasting itself is exhausting, let alone when you are struggling to get out of bed. Imagine suffering from depression and you have to wake up at 3, 4, 5 a.m. every single day for a month. Sleep deprivation alone will affect your mood and worsen depressive symptoms. When you have depression, everything is a challenge. Now you are depressed and you cannot find comfort in having food or water for 12 plus hours. On top of everything else in life being a struggle, now you have to plan your iftar for when the fast ends. Being exhausted from depression on top of the exhaustion from Ramadan will just make everything, well, exhausting. The social pressure to fast when depressed is depressing in itself. If you tell Muslims you are suffering from depression, they will still guilt you into fasting. That is because having depression is not enough to be exempted. If that were truly the case, then a lot of Muslims would not be fasting at all.
Fasting in back-breaking industries. I remember when I went to visit my uncle in Kenya, I saw the construction workers working in the hot heat outside, no shirts on, and of course, no water. How many people have to suffer to hard labor jobs while fasting? Or farmers, factory workers, police officers, security guards, street vendors, delivery drivers, emergency staff like paramedics or firefighters. Do you really want your surgeons surviving on less sleep and no food or water while they're operating on you? A surgeon needs extreme focus and precision. They stand for hours and it's high stress. What about a firefighter? Do you really want him to be exhausted while carrying you out of a burning building? I guess Allah wants them to cut back on saving lives and just do a few extra rakats of prayer instead. This includes my Muslim mechanic who looked tired as hell when I went to fix my car in Ramadan a few years ago. Then there's also the guy I met at Fajr prayer when I was still Muslim many years ago who told me he fell asleep while driving and got into a car crash because he was so tired. Children fasting. Kids also have to go through this if they're at the age of puberty. Even if they aren't, they're encouraged or pressured to fast. Thankfully in Canada, at least where I live, the public schools try to help out these poor kids by letting them sit out from gym class and even giving them a quiet place to sit in the library during lunch. In Muslim countries, I wonder what it's like to be a kid and everyone's fasting and you're also pressured into it. Well, I know one ex-Muslim I talked to who told me he fainted while fasting during childhood, I think in Pakistan. And then if you're a girl who's on her period, you can eat. Everyone's going to look at you weird and you'd have to explain to them. Also another strangity in Islam, having to expose that you're on your period to others. Or you could suffer through the fast, but it wouldn't count. Thanks Allah. Ozempic for Ramadan. Now that brings us to a hilarious workaround for the whole fasting thing. What if there was a pill you could take that would take away your hunger? There actually is one. If you're taking this drug, you'll be able to fast no problem. Ozempic, it's a weight loss drug that takes away your appetite. Let's watch this short skit.
I used to rush to eat a whole meal before dawn, but now I just grab my prayer beads and my Ozempic needle. As long as I shoot up before the sun rises, it's halal.
That was actually a joke, but it makes you wonder, did Allah predict this? Is this haram? Does this take away your reward in any way? I'm guessing it's no worse than sleeping through the fast. Apparently that's okay too, which shows you how dumb the whole thing is. So many workarounds. Another workaround is traveling. If you consider yourself a traveler, even if you purposely decide to travel for leisure, you can skip your fast until the traveling is done and you're no longer a traveler. There you go, another workaround. Leaving Islam. Finally, Ramadan is a month where an abundance of Muslims leave Islam. I know for me, it was a moment that triggered introspection and I ended up leaving during it. I think being faced with the constant religion in your face makes you address it and think about what you are believing in. For me, it was a Ramadan pre-dinner talk where Sheikh Dawood Butt in maybe 2015 or 2016, nearly a decade ago, said something about the planets and orbits and how Allah holds up the sky. And this triggered me to look into it more because it just didn't make any sense. If fasting in Ramadan was optional, would anyone do it? I personally believe many ex-Muslims become ex-Muslims in Ramadan, and I'm excited to see who else is going to leave Islam now. And if fasting in Ramadan was optional, would anyone do it? I don't think many would. The reason we know this is because the optional fasting in the month of Shaban before Ramadan and in the month of Shawwal after Ramadan are done by probably less than 1 or 2%. Fasting is a massive challenge for everyone involved, but somehow the community drags themselves through it every year. In conclusion, Ramadan is a month that forces Muslims to put aside everything and focus on the man-made God. Islam is one of the toughest religions because it has this mandatory period of annual fasting. While going through this month, Muslims do have some good experiences bonding and spending time together, but also have to make an immense sacrifice and end up missing out on many other experiences. This religion robs them of their autonomy and choice and takes away a whole month of their lives every year. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you are not fasting and you are free from these chains of Islam. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you're awesome. Do subscribe, put the bell on, and leave a comment to support the channel. Again, if you'd like to support the channel even more, your help is most appreciated. Please join on Patreon or on YouTube members. Thanks for watching. This is your friendly ex-Muslim and wifey signing out.